Imagine a battlefield where the might of nature becomes the ultimate weapon. As conflict rages, we often think of missiles, drones, and the relentless advance of armored tanks. But what if I told you that Finland and Poland are uncovering a shocking strategy harnessing the very earth beneath their feet? Could the wetlands of these nations become a game-changing barrier against Russian aggression? This isn't just a bold idea, it's a potential lifeline for NATO's defenses. On August 29, news emerged that Finland and Poland are exploring a radical approach to counter Russia's military resurgence. Rather than relying on cutting-edge technology like new anti-tank missiles, they are looking back to their landscapes, specifically, the extensive wetlands that were once drained for agriculture. These natural features, especially restored peat bogs, could serve as a formidable line of defense. History has shown how wetlands can trap invading forces. Just earlier in 2025, a tragic incident claimed the lives of 4 U.S. soldiers when their armored vehicle became immobilized in a bog in Lithuania. This heartbreaking event underscored the potential of these terrains in warfare. As discussions unfold, both nations are actively reviving their peatlands, with Poland integrating this concept into its massive Eastern Shield initiative. The Polish Defense Ministry emphasizes their commitment to environmental protection, recognizing that nature is not merely an ally but a crucial component of national security. Finland is also set to engage in talks this autumn aimed at restoring their own wetlands. Could this revival of natural landscapes turn into a strategic advantage against Russian tanks? The Greifswald-Meyer Center in Germany is echoing this sentiment, advocating for the restoration of wetlands across Europe. They propose significant investments to rehabilitate these lands, highlighting their military benefits, slowing troop movements and creating defensible corridors. Imagine the chaos as tanks struggle to navigate muddy terrains, falling victim to nature's grip. But the significance of these wetlands extends beyond immediate defense. They could shape the very future of military strategy in Europe. A natural barrier could emerge from what has traditionally been perceived as uninhabitable land, presenting unexpected challenges for any invading force. As Poland and Finland consider which wetlands to restore, the stakes are high. Will they prioritize areas near their most vulnerable borders, or will economic factors complicate their plans? Every decision made could pivotally affect the balance of power in the region. With tensions escalating and Russia's military threats looming, the urgency to act becomes palpable. What if the restoration of these wetlands not only protects against invasion but also strengthens the resolve of NATO? The idea that nature itself could thwart a military onslaught is tantalizing. Can it truly be the turning point in contemporary warfare? As the countdown begins, the world watches. Will Finland and Poland's innovative use of wetlands redefine the landscape of conflict? Or will traditional weapons and tactics prevail? The answer could reshape the future of European security. The tragic loss of 4 soldiers in a wetland accident brought to light an unexpected ally in warfare, nature itself. The incident revealed how wetlands can serve as formidable barriers in military conflict, a lesson that Finland and Poland are now eager to embrace. As tensions rise in Eastern Europe, both nations are exploring a radical strategy, reviving drained peat bogs to thwart Russian armored advances. Finland and Poland are not merely brainstorming, they are actively planning. Reports from Politico indicate that Poland has integrated wetland restoration into its ambitious $2.69 billion Eastern Shield initiative. This project aims not only to bolster military defenses but also to promote environmental recovery, including the creation of peatlands and the reforestation of border areas. Meanwhile, Finland's defense and environment ministries are set to initiate talks this fall on a similar peatland revitalization project. The underlying message is clear: nature is an ally, and we want to use it, declared Cezary Tomczyk from Poland's defense ministry. But the movement doesn't stop at Poland and Finland. Voices in Germany are echoing similar sentiments, emphasizing the military advantages of wetlands. The Greifswald-Meyer Center, a think tank focused on peatlands, has called on the European Union to invest around $580 million in restoring a significant area of wetlands. They argue that these naturally waterlogged terrains can effectively immobilize tanks, hinder troop movements, and create predictable pathways that are easier to defend. The potential military implications are staggering. Imagine a Russian tank column grinding to a halt, unable to navigate the treacherous, waterlogged terrain. Wetlands not only impede enemy forces but also offer a protective buffer for critical infrastructure, complicating troop movements near vital transport routes and energy facilities. The strategic advantages are undeniable. As Finland and Poland embark on this ambitious plan, one must wonder, will this natural defense system be enough to deter an aggressive adversary like Russia? As history has shown, wetlands have played pivotal roles in warfare, and these two nations are poised to harness that legacy to safeguard their futures. What will happen if this innovative strategy gains momentum? Only time will tell, but the stakes could not be higher as the specter of conflict looms ever closer. The idea of using natural landscapes as a defense strategy is resurfacing, particularly in the case of Finland and Poland. As these nations consider revitalizing their wetlands, they align with a broader potential plan that NATO could adopt, harnessing what could be termed a bog belt. This belt includes an extensive network of wetlands across Europe, both untouched and drained, forming a natural barrier along the borders with Russia and Belarus. These regions stretch from the icy Arctic terrains of Finland, weaving through the Baltic states, and extending down towards eastern Poland. Historically, deploying wetlands as a military tactic is not new. For centuries, they have provided strategic advantages to those familiar with their geography. For instance, in 9 AD, Germanic tribes used their bogs to ensnare Roman soldiers, turning the invaders into vulnerable targets. Similarly, during the Soviet Union's attempts to invade Finland in the 1940s, the challenging wetland terrain became a formidable obstacle. Pauli Aalto-Setälä, a representative from Finland's National Coalition Party, recalls these historical lessons. Following the initiation for discussions on revitalizing these natural defenses, he emphasizes Finland's historical reliance on its environment for defense. Throughout our history, we've utilized our natural landscape strategically, he asserts. At our eastern border, there are many areas ripe for restoration, not only for ecological benefit but to create formidable barriers against intrusion. As both nations explore the possibility of re-wetting their degraded peatlands, they're not just addressing environmental concerns. This approach may serve as a significant tactical advantage in any potential conflict. Imagine combat vehicles struggling to maneuver through swampy terrain, bogged down in sinks of mud. The very elements that constitute nature's beauty could turn into battlegrounds of a new kind. Will nature be the ultimate shield against advancing forces? As discussions heat up and restoration plans unfold, the stakes are escalating not just for Finland and Poland but for the looming specter of Russia. With these developments, the question remains, how will the Kremlin respond to such an unexpected turn in warfare tactics? The previous discussion highlighted Finland's strategic approach to utilizing its natural landscape as a defensive measure. Pauli Aalto-Setälä, a member of Finland's governing National Coalition Party, emphasized the potential of restoring areas near the eastern border to not only benefit the environment but also create formidable barriers against potential aggressors. In this context, Finland's landscape holds great promise. There are vast regions that were once drained for agriculture but proved unproductive, making them ideal for restoration. Christina Lang from the Natural Resources Institute articulated the urgency. It makes perfect sense to rehydrate these lands, especially near the eastern front. This restoration could significantly bolster Finland's defenses, as about one-third of its territory is covered in peatland that could hinder enemy movements. Yet, a concerning reality persists: half of this peatland has already been altered or drained. Many of these regions, turned barren by previous agricultural efforts, can now be rehydrated to create obstacles for advancing troops. Considering the climate crisis and the looming threats from Russia, utilizing these wetlands as defensive shields is not just innovative, but necessary. Since the onset of the Ukraine conflict, President Vladimir Putin has targeted Finland with ominous warnings, threatening consequences should Finland proceed with NATO membership. Although direct military confrontation hasn't yet occurred, a shadow of anticipation looms, a crucial tipping point for peace and security in the region. As the threat of invasion persists, these strategic ecological adjustments may just be the key to not only mitigate the risks from Russia but also harness nature's inherent power as an ally. The stakes have never been higher, and both nations might find their environmental decisions echoing across the battlefield. What will Finland and Poland decide for their landscapes, their allies, and their future? The moment for action is upon them, transforming wetlands into their first line of defense. Imagine a world where nature becomes an unexpected hero in the face of conflict. This is not just fantasy, it's a story unfolding right now in Europe. In the shadow of increasing tensions, two nations are turning back to their roots, literally. Poland is reinvigorating its wetlands as a formidable defense against potential aggression from Russia. For years, conversations about revitalizing these vital ecosystems have simmered beneath the surface. Wiktoria Jedrzejkowiak, a passionate climate activist and a voice for the Fridays for Future movement, aptly observes that the winds of change are finally blowing in Poland. When security is on the table, everyone pays attention, she notes, her resolve palpable. The ancient peatlands and forests that dot the landscape could soon play a crucial role in defending the nation. But how did we arrive at this juncture? Amid rising fears of conflict, nature is being reimagined as a powerful ally. As Poland looks to restore these wetlands, approximately 5% of its land holds the potential to transform defense strategies. Despite the pressing challenges, with about 85% of the peatlands already drained for agriculture or development, tough choices lie ahead. Which wetlands should be revived, especially when some are now home to thriving communities? The stakes could not be higher. Failing to act could leave the nation vulnerable to a new invasion. Wetlands have proven to be disastrous for tanks, as highlighted by a tragic incident where 4 U.S. soldiers met their end trapped in a bog. Their fate serves as a stark reminder: the same pitfalls that claimed lives could also thwart an advancing army. Russian forces, heavily reliant on tanks for their assaults, could find themselves ensnared by marshy landscapes if the plans come to fruition. As discussions heat up, the Polish Defense Ministry is poised to embark on a significant restoration initiative. Meanwhile, the looming threat from Russia hangs heavy in the air. Vladimir Putin's arsenal, once seen as a mighty facade, faces potential ruin at the hands of nature itself. Underestimating wetlands would be a grave mistake, as these vibrant ecosystems could redefine the boundaries of conflict. Picture the sound of tanks sputtering to a halt, their advance stalled by muddy earth that swallows them whole. Imagine the surprise on the faces of soldiers as they confront an unyielding wall of marshland instead of the enemy they expected. This is not merely about returning to nature, it's about survival, strategy, and seizing the power that lies within the earth itself. In a twist that could tip the scales of warfare, the very landscapes that once supported agricultural growth may just turn the tide in favor of nations like Poland and Finland. As they embrace this innovative approach, they aren't just fighting for territory, they are reclaiming their heritage, all while molding it into a formidable barrier against those who threaten their sovereignty. The message is clear: when nature and strategy collide, the outcome could very well reshape the future of defense in a world fraught with uncertainty. Will this natural revival thwart a Russian invasion, or will it merely be a brief period of respite before storm clouds gather once more? The tables have turned, and history has proven that sometimes, the most effective weapons are those that don't shoot. It's hard to believe, but nature might hold the key to defeating armored war machines. What if wetlands could shape the outcome of a conflict, turning the tide of battle? As the war in Ukraine rages on, evidence suggests that countries like Finland and Poland are uncovering an unconventional yet powerful weapon against Russian advances: their own landscapes. This startling strategy could fundamentally alter the dynamics of warfare in Europe. The necessity for such tactics has become glaringly evident. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance, by August 31, Russia had lost a staggering 11,151 tanks. Just on August 30 alone, 2 more were destroyed. These tanks are essential in Russia's aggressive military operations, providing vital protection for soldiers while unleashing firepower on fortifications. They are true behemoths of war, or are they? Ukraine has already devised ways to counter such armored threats. Anti-tank missiles are effective, but kamikaze drones, packed with explosives, have become the real game-changers. The Car Center reported that drones are responsible for over 85% of Russia's losses in personnel and equipment, including their colossal tanks. So, what's the point of reactivating wetlands when drones are proving so effective? It's a valid question. Finland, Poland, and NATO at large are shifting towards drone-centric defenses, and Poland is fully investing in this strategy. In 2025, they plan to allocate $55 million for drone acquisitions, propelling them to the forefront of their military framework. But here's the twist: imagine the impact of combining drone technology with the treacherous qualities of wetlands. Tanks struggle in marshy terrains, their tracks sinking deep into the muck, immobilizing these iron giants. When bogged down, they become easy targets for agile, aerial drones. Picture tank crews scrambling to escape from their traps, desperately seeking solid ground, only to realize their paths are blocked by wetlands. The very landscape that was once ignored could turn out to be the ultimate battlefield ally. The question looms: will this unorthodox strategy redefine defensive measures in a potential clash with Russia? With every passing day, the stakes grow higher, and nature may have a profound role to play in this modern theater of war. Previously, we saw how ruthless bogs can force tanks to a grinding halt, turning armored giants into sitting ducks. Tank crews, spotted by relentless drones they cannot fend off, scramble to flee on foot, but the muddy, tangled wetlands choke their escape routes. Now, imagine being those soldiers, forced to trudge for hundreds of feet, even miles, through biting cold mud, unable to sprint, exhausted before even reaching safety. Every slow, sinking step makes them targets, vulnerable to precise strikes from above. The wetlands don't just slow them, they can drain the life right out of them, just like the tragic fate of those American soldiers caught in Lithuania. You might think Russia's forces would simply avoid such traps, but here is the twist: defenders like Poland and Finland know exactly where every treacherous bog lies. This intimate knowledge transforms these wetlands from mere landscapes into deadly funnels, guiding enemy troops straight into carefully laid ambushes. It's a brutal, strategic trap, reminiscent of massive minefields used by both Ukraine and Russia to herd opposing forces into kill zones. Restored wetlands will function like nature's own minefields, devastating for those who try to cross but life-saving for defenders lying in wait. Military analysts call wetlands perfect terrain for guerrilla warfare. They fulfill every condition laid out by the famous strategist Karl von Clausewitz: deep within a nation's boundaries, scattered irregularly, naturally difficult to navigate, reliant on local support, and capable of sustained harassment rather than one decisive blow. Who has been mastering guerrilla warfare in recent years? Ukraine. What Finland, Poland, and other allies possess is the ultimate natural asset for guerrilla tactics. This landscape is tailor-made to undermine Russia's favorite form of attack: brute force armored advances. But here's the real shock: what if the war doesn't just rely on missiles or drones or tanks? What if the very land itself becomes the weapon? Imagine Russian tanks bogged down, engines sputtering, unable to move forward, while stealthy defenders strike from hidden positions. The battlefield might not be locked in fierce gunfire alone, but in a deadly dance with mud, water, and moss. What will this mean when Putin's forces try to march into these countries? Can machinery conquer the slow, crushing grip of waterlogged earth? Stay with us, because the next part reveals how this natural defense could change the game for all of Europe's future wars. War is often imagined as a clash of weapons and artillery, with images of missiles flying and tanks rumbling across fields. But what if the battles of the future could be waged with the very landscapes these nations inhabit? The conflict in Ukraine has shown us that sometimes, the fiercest weapon is found in nature itself. In a surprising twist, two countries are turning to their natural resources to thwart aggression, exploiting the secret power of wetlands. Let's delve into this captivating story. On August 29, a striking report emerged about Finland and Poland. These two nations seem to have discovered an unorthodox method to challenge Russia's armored might. No new anti-tank missile or cutting-edge drone is involved here. Instead, they are considering the revival of their old peat bogs, wetlands that were drained long ago for agriculture, now gathering dust but waiting to be repurposed. In a world where armored vehicles dominate, could nature be the ultimate equalizer? It's a chilling concept. Just think about it: wetlands that have been overlooked for centuries could form a new, formidable line of defense against Russia's relentless military machinery. The tragic death of 4 U.S. soldiers trapped in a bog while operating their recovery vehicle illustrated just how treacherous these landscapes can be. Their misfortune shone a spotlight on a potential game-changer in military tactics. If Finland and Poland succeed, they might root Russian advancements in marshy mud, creating an insurmountable barrier. Can you picture Russian tanks struggling to move through the thick, waterlogged earth? In Poland, An ambitious initiative, the Eastern Shield Project, has begun, investing around $2.69 billion in restoring its natural barriers. Poland's defense ministry emphasized that this isn't mere environmental protection, it's a strategy for national security. Planting forests and reviving peatlands is now intertwined with military strategy. Finland is following suit, gearing up for talks this autumn to potentially revitalize its own wetlands. But will they act quickly enough? On the horizon, could nature become their fiercest ally? To understand their motives, one only needs to look at history. The use of wetlands has long been a strategy that changes the tide of warfare. Ancient tribes ensnared the Roman legions in traps of marshy ground, while Russia faced its own bog-related hurdles during the brutal battles for Finland in the 1940s. The threat of adversaries using the land against them is not lost on these nations, who have gathered around this shared vision. In Finland, where 1/3 of the country comprises suitable peatland, the potential to fortify against Russian advances is akin to a newly discovered weapon. Yet, as the clock ticks unforgivingly, will they seize the opportunity? Meanwhile, discussions are buzzing in Poland about how to reclaim their wetlands, which cover about 5% of their territory. However, 85% of these bogs have been drained. The momentum in conservation is about to hit a critical point. With climate change becoming increasingly pressing, can this push for restoration also serve as a military precaution? If these wetlands spring back to life, could they spell defeat for a Russian invasion? And the heart-pounding question looms, will Poland and Finland manage to reforge their lands into fortifications in time? As nature strives to reclaim its territory, so too do these nations look to reclaim their security. Will Russia be bogged down by the very earth it traverses, or will these plans be left bogged in bureaucratic delays? Only time will tell. As the drums of war echo, it's easy to forget that the battlefield often extends beyond weapons and tanks. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine highlights this stark reality. Meanwhile, two neighboring nations, Finland and Poland, are uncovering an extraordinary strategy that may shift the balance in their favor against potential aggression. What could possibly serve as a military asset besides bullets and bombs? Nature itself. Emerging from the shadows, restored wetlands are now taking center stage. Not only do these waterlogged landscapes provide essential environmental benefits, but they could also emerge as formidable obstacles to Russia's armored might. The recent revelation that these two countries are reviving historical peat bogs as tactical defenses is both innovative and audacious. Could this unorthodox approach redefine modern warfare? Ironically, this idea gained traction after a tragic incident where 4 U.S. soldiers lost their lives in a bog while stationed in Lithuania. Their armored vehicle became immobilized, highlighting how treacherous these landscapes can be. A stark reminder, indeed, of the untamed power of nature. Recent reports reveal that Finland and Poland are forging ahead with plans to restore these natural habitats. The Polish Defense Ministry has committed to incorporating wetland restoration in its Eastern Shield project, a $2.69 billion initiative. Their defense officials openly acknowledge, nature is an ally, and we want to use it. Finland is not far behind. Discussions about similar peatland restoration projects are slated to commence this fall, signaling a new era of environmental and military synergy. Consider this, vast stretches of Europe's wetlands, an expanse known as the Bog Belt, line the borders shared with Russia and Belarus. This natural barrier could create fortified zones that would slow advancing troops and impede tank movements. The Greifswald-Meyer Center has been vocal about this potential, advocating for a substantial investment in restoring peatlands to support military strategies. While these countries are united in their forward-thinking approaches, they must navigate the complexities of rewetting landscapes historically altered for agriculture and forestry. In Finland, nearly 1/3 of the land is peat, but much of it is depleted. In Poland, where 85% of peatlands have been drained, the challenge is immense. The urgency builds, especially as tensions rise. Russia's continual threats loom large, especially after Finland's recent NATO membership. In a sense, nature could become the shield these nations need in the face of uncertainty and aggression. A tapestry of historical significance and modern necessity intertwines. Wars have been waged across bog-laden territories for centuries, where ancient Germans effectively used wetlands to thwart Roman legions. Even during World War II, Finland's marshes posed substantial challenges for Soviet invasions. The lessons are clear: harnessing nature may hold the key to survival and victory. The climate war is intertwined with this conflict, as Ukraine battles to reclaim its land from destruction while witnessing ecologic devastation. The World Wildlife Fund reports catastrophic fire incidents, a harrowing rise since the war began. Ironically, while Ukraine targets Russian fuel sources, the resulting carbon emissions pose a significant threat to the environment. Reintroducing wetlands is not merely about defense, it offers a vital step toward healing the planet's wounds. So, as we watch the strategies of Finland and Poland unfold, will the power of peat serve as a beacon of hope and a shield for the oppressed? Can cultivating nature truly outmaneuver tanks and artillery? The stakes are high, and victory may hinge not just on military might, but on the earth beneath our feet. Previously, we saw how environmental and defense forces in Europe are teaming up in an unprecedented way. Their goal is to restore peatlands, wetlands once dry for farming or forestry, that could now become powerful natural defenses against armored attacks. Today, a new twist emerges. The European Union has passed a groundbreaking law that could turn this idea into reality, but not without major challenges. Imagine this: the EU's nature restoration law demands that by 2030, 30% of damaged peatlands must be revived, and 50% by 2050. Every member state must draft concrete plans before September 2026. It's almost as if destiny has aligned environmental restoration with military strategy. Finland and Poland's defensive ambitions fit perfectly within this massive continent-wide effort. But there's a catch. Restoring peatlands isn't as simple as just flooding a field again. Re-wetting these lands poses complicated risks. Some places have been developed for generations. The land is often altered beyond easy repair. Flooding too quickly might just create stagnant lakes instead of vibrant wetlands teeming with biodiversity. Mark van der Wal from the International Union for Conservation of Nature warns that rushed restoration might miss the ecological balance, turning vital habitats into chemical sinks. Yet, from a military lens, that might not be a problem at all. The faster the land becomes impassable swamp, the quicker it slows down enemy tanks and forces them into bottlenecks. Rapid flooding could become a chilling shortcut to defense if only bureaucratic hurdles don't halt the process first. Because, when environmental and defense agencies collide instead of collaborate, red tape chokes progress. So the question remains, how will Poland and Finland navigate this intricate dance between nature, national security, and politics? Talks are underway, carefully balancing ecological care with strategic necessity. But time is ticking, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Will these ancient, soggy battlefields become the next fortress line against an armored invasion? Or will the complexities of restoration and policy drown the hope before it ever takes root? The answer could reshape the future of Europe's security, and it's closer than we think. The previous part revealed how defense and environmental agencies must work closely to restore wetlands quickly. If that partnership breaks, bureaucratic delays could kill their advantage. Now, Poland and Finland are deep into talks to bring their bogs back to life. Estonia has joined this conversation, too. Thanks to a groundbreaking new European law, a remarkable transformation is underway. Soon, NATO's eastern border could turn into a sprawling network of wetlands, a natural trap so thick and treacherous it could stop Russia's vast armored forces dead in their tracks. Imagine tanks sinking into the mud, trapped like flies in amber, a nightmare scenario for any invading army. Putin faces a chilling dilemma. His traditional tactics, built on overwhelming blitzkrieg armor, are suddenly vulnerable to nature's own defenses. But here's the twist: Russia's military commanders are no strangers to unconventional strategies from their foes. They've been caught off guard before. Now, it's Ukraine that's rewriting the rules with something unexpectedly clever, an ingenious counter to Russia's drone warfare that's shockingly simple, yet devastatingly effective. What secret weapon is Ukraine wielding against Russia's robotic eyes in the sky? The answer might just change how battles are fought in this new age of warfare. Stay tuned to discover this mind-blowing tactic that's forcing Putin's forces into a defensive spiral. This story is far from over, and the next chapter will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about modern combat.